Thanks, everyone, and thanks for the nice introduction. I'm Bill Mulligan. I'm from the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, and I'm here to talk to you about how we can grow the Cloud Native community to the next 100,000 contributors. So, in case you didn't know, CNCF as a foundation is now about 6 years old. And this right here is a picture of me at 6, about to go to my first day of schools. And since I was 6, I'd grown from, just a little baby to someone that could walk and talk on their own. I'd learned how to dress myself, at least in semi-acceptable clothing, and I'd learned how to talk and interact with people. But as I went off to my first day of school, there was still a lot of growth and still a lot of learning to happen. And so the thing that I'm going to talk about today is now that CNCF is 6 years old, it's no longer just a toddler. It's going off to school, becoming, kind of a young adult. What are the things that we need to focus on next to grow the cloud native community and take it to the next level? If we look at a couple different things, we can really see the growth of the foundation in the number of projects accepted. In 2016, there were only 4. In 2020, there were 35. And now there are over 100 open source projects at CNCF. The most famous one is probably Kubernetes, Prometheus from here in Germany, in Berlin. Other projects like Envoy, Vitess, ContainerDays. We have a variety of incubating projects and also sandbox projects, which I'll get to a little bit later. We've also had a massive growth in the number of members, from our launch members that were just numbering in the tens to now in the hundreds. CNCF now has over 700 members, including the only open source foundation with all the major cloud providers in the world represented. So I think that's a really strong testament, the number of companies that are investing in CNCF, to how important it is to the cloud native ecosystem. Not only that, but this isn't just vendor members. An important thing for us at CNCF is also the end user ecosystem. And end users are companies that are using cloud native technologies, but not selling products or services around cloud native technologies. And we currently have over 150 different companies. Here in Germany, that's going to be companies like N26, like Adidas, people that are that we're interacting with consumers or other companies that businesses are interacting with. I think this is one of the most unique and exciting things about CNCF is this large and growing end user ecosystem. We like to say that at CNCF, we have end user driven open source, because the people that are going to be waking up at 3 a.m. when things go wrong are the people that are going to have the best insight into what's important for a project and how it works and how it doesn't work. And this is what I think is a really strength of the cloud native community. And not only that, but the CNCF has grown drastically even through the pandemic. Now, this slide is a little bit old because it's just looking at kind of the year of 2020 and what happened in that. And during the pandemic, we had a 30% growth in members, a 60% growth in the number of contributors, and over 100% growth in the number of projects. The pandemic didn't slow us down at all. In fact, I would say it almost only accelerated our growth as every company leaned into digitization, working from home, and other trends that relied on cloud native infrastructures and IT. So now the question is, what comes with year 7 and what challenges does CNCF need to overcome? At the Linux Foundation, which CNCF is a sub-foundation of, there's a cycle that we like to talk about, where first we have projects, companies then take those and make products that they sell to customers, which results in profits for the companies, which then they can invest back into the ecosystem into different projects. And this creates kind of a virtuous cycle with one naturally leading to the next. Now, I think that's important, but I think at CNCF, there's other hurdles that we need to overcome. For me, when I'm looking at what we need to focus on, it's projects, places, and people. And I think these will be the most important things and the keys to CNCF as we continue to grow. So, starting with projects. What projects are is really like pieces of code that are trying to solve a use case. And in open source, and especially in CNCF, create a developer community around them. Now, there's a big joke in the CNCF about our landscape and how massive it's grown. This tweet is a couple years old about kind of where we started and how it's going, but today it's even more massive. I think everybody knows that there is a lot happening in the cloud native ecosystem, and it's really difficult to keep up and keep track of it. And so when we look at this landscape, what is the most important thing, and where are our projects going today? And I was talking about earlier, the sandbox projects. We have 3 stages of maturity within the CNCF. The graduated, which is like Kubernetes, the incubating, which are kind of the next level down. And I think when you're looking at where is cloud native going, what projects are going to be most important, you really need to look at the sandbox projects. And these are kind of the experimental, cutting edge projects that are going to be shaping what the future of cloud native technologies and IT is going to be. If you want to find out what's next or what the exciting new topics or challenges are, the sandbox is the place to look. And this covers a wide range of different things, from high performance computing to networking to storage to GitOps to edge computing. Lots of fun and exciting things in the sandbox happening today. Now, stealing a slide from Liz Rice, kind of how do we break down and think about when we have 59 different projects, and where are the projects going in the CNCF? We can see that there's a couple of different groups that we like to put projects in terms of where they are under the technical oversight committee in their technical advisory groups, in terms of runtime, storage, observability, networking, security, and app delivery. But if we pull out a little bit more where the sandbox projects are, then we can see kind of where things are happening. We can see that as cloud native is growing in maturity, we're driving into new use cases, new industry, and moving the value up the stack. Things like edge computing, chaos engineering, service mesh, and developer experience are all important if you want to continue and grow the cloud native ecosystem. Being able to create more specialized solutions that are applicable to a specific industry is important as we grow and broaden the number of areas that we touch, and also moving up the stack. As lower levels of our infrastructure gets commoditized, the value is going to move up the stack, so the projects are going to also. Originally it was about the hardware, then it was about the operating system, and the value is going to keep moving up the stack. So we need to keep on thinking about that as we're looking at what projects are going to be important coming up next. And as I kind of dive back into this, the first slide was a lie. Things are moving so fast in the cloud native space. Actually, just last week, we had 5 more projects adopted. I made my slides 2 weeks ago, so I needed to throw in this update here. We're always adding more projects. These ones, as I said, are different industries, moving the value up the stack in terms of edge computing, multi-cloud management, security were just the latest ones that were adopted. And they're not even included on the landscape. They're that new. So it's a quick moving space, and it is hard to keep track of the sandbox, but it's an exciting place to be. The next part I want to focus on is the places, the geographies that are going to impact where cloud native is going. And when we're talking about, as I said, for the projects, it's important to create these developer communities. Next thing is moving it from where it's originally founded, the core team that first developed it. For instance, for Prometheus, it was right here at SoundCloud in Berlin. How do you expand it into more of a worldwide phenomenon? I think you need to be able to move from just the initial place towards local adoption all around the world. And that's going to create the user growth that all of these projects are looking at. And so as we look at the growth of projects and the CNCF, how can we create local adoption in different places around the world? And if you look at this right here, this is a project from CNCF, and this is called DevStats. It pulls in all the contribution statistics from GitHub and gives you all the information you want about any project or CNCF as a whole. So this dashboard right here is actually CNCF as a whole, which countries are contributing. And you can see the top 3 are the United States, China, and Germany here is in 3rd place. So we're doing great. But I think the interesting thing here is you can actually see a lot of the contributions is coming from the United States. How can we make the colored bands for other countries grow so that we're expanding outside just North America focus? How can we expand cloud native into more geographies and bring the innovation here to Germany? If we look at CNCF membership right now, it's currently 53% in the Americas, 20% APAC, and 25% Europe. I think we can do better than this at CNCF because if you look at the Linux Foundation membership overall, it's actually more evenly split with closer to a third in each of these geographies. I'd like to see CNCF move more towards that, not just in terms of memberships, but also in terms of contributors too. This is just kind of the easier graphic to show right now. And there are already a lot of great ways that the projects and the community is moving towards it to expand into different geographies. For instance, Kubernetes has done a great job as a project in terms of internationalization. There are translations into many different languages to help developers, kind of learn and experience about projects in their own local language. I'm not a native German speaker, and if you ask me to read the Kubernetes documentation in German and make something work, it would be quite difficult for me. It's a lot easier for me to read, understand, and also speak in English. So that's why I'm giving this talk in English, even though we are in Germany. So being able to bring things into local context, I think, is important. It'll be interesting to see how projects do that going forwards. Another great thing is our Kubernetes Community Day programs. This is currently across 6 continents. This is near and dear to my heart because it's a project I run. I'm looking for that 7th continent if anybody wants to organize one in Antarctica. There is one going to be organized, or planning to be organized, in Berlin. I'm super excited to see that one forming together. If you go on KubernetesCommunity.org or on GitHub, you can find more details if you want to be involved in that and bring cloud native, just as this conference is, to Germany. And I think the success of this project so far has been awesome. We had a Kubernetes Community Day in Africa with a lot of great growth and development there. Kubernetes Community Day Spain had 3 days of conferences with 43 different speakers and over 25 hours of content, all in Spanish. So providing people content in their own language, so that you can understand that. Exact same thing with KCD Korea, having a whole set of content to help people understand and grow within the cloud native community, all in Korean. I think it's great when you can have things in people's Muttersprache, so that you can, really understand it on a more familiar level. And so that's kind of the geographies, but the last part I'd like to talk about is the actual people. And because that's what we are at the end of the day, is we're just people, and how do we connect and communicate with each other? As we're starting to get this local adoption, this user growth, that's going to feed back into the developer needs and complete the cycle. So the people, I really think, are the key and the most important part to this. And so how do we get more people into the ecosystem? How do we encourage people to grow into the ecosystem? And for me, that's the most important thing that I'm doing at CNCF, is how do we promote and develop people? And so the question is, so I actually got my bachelor's in biochemistry. This is me at the 6th grade science fair. How did I enter the cloud native ecosystem? So I actually joined a startup after my master's degree. I thought Kubernetes was a nice island in Greece, and I was really excited to have some great team meetings on the beach. But fortunately, it was a little bit different than that. This is my introduction to the cloud native ecosystem, was sit down on the first day on your Windows machine at Kubernetes 1.8, set up a Kubernetes cluster. I'd never seen the command line before, and it took me about 8 hours, but that's how I got started. Not everybody wants to go through that journey or started a startup. So how do we change that? Other ways that I got involved in the cloud native ecosystem was writing blogs, including on the Kubernetes blog. I used to work there, contributing to publications like the New Stack, contributing to open source. My first change here, you can see the PR, is literally just fixing a broken link. or adding a description, copy and pasting someone else's work to a new location to do things. And also giving a conference talk. That's how I got into Cloud Native. This is me on the stage 2 years ago, the last time we had this conference in person. And as I look around the ecosystem, like every story is different. That's just my story. How have other people entered the ecosystem? Like one, for instance, is Kelsey Hightower, pretty famous person in this space. He was a system administrator for a very long time, and that's how he grew into the Kubernetes and cloud native space. Another one is Nikita, a former colleague at Ludsa, and she was through an internship called LFX, paid to work on the Kubernetes projects, and that's how she got into the ecosystem. But how do we create a more repeatable journey and process for people so that as students, as people are looking at what's an exciting career, where do I want to go, they consider cloud native as attractive, viable, and potentially even like lucrative career option, because I think everybody knows like Kubernetes and other cloud native people are really in demand right now. So how can we train and develop more people to help fill that gap? And I think we need to focus on creating sustainable contributor pathways. And there are some great resources out there right now if you know somebody that wants to start on their journey. For instance, there's a whole Kubernetes contributor website at kBs.dev. There's also a whole group under the CNCF focused specifically on contributor strategy. So this is for our projects overall. Both of these are great initiatives driven by the community, taking like different resources and helping people get into the cloud native and open source ecosystem. There's also many people in the community that are doing things. For instance, there's a show on Cloud Native TV called Looks Good to Me, done by David McKay. And he's showing people how they can start contributing to different open source projects. And he literally just takes people through in his hour show, step by step. This is how you get something merged into a different project. He's even done like live contributions where by the end of the hour, he's made a merge pull request into a different project. 100 Day of Kubernetes, another great resource is walking through the whole ecosystem. And then there's lots of different courses out there that people can take to learn about cloud native. But I think we need a more structured pathway to that. For any students out there that are looking to attend KubeCon, Cloud Native Con, we always have free tickets for you. Please talk to me or reach out to me if you need the link for that. We have a bunch of free training courses on edX for people that will like to learn about the ecosystem, and there's more steps that are going to be announced. We're currently building out this program, so it's in beta, but it's something that I'm very excited about, creating a sustainable pathway for people to get into the ecosystem. And so with that, I think the future of cloud native is very bright. I think we have a lot to grow and learn from. If you like this talk and want to learn more, I strongly encourage you to come to KubeCon, Cloud Native Con North America, October 11th to the 15th, either in Los Angeles, or if you can't do that, there will also be a virtual part. Both will be awesome and amazing. The Linux Foundation events team is an awesome group to work with. I love working with them on a daily basis. They do a great job. And with that, please feel free to reach out to me at any time, either through email, on Twitter, or just book a meeting with me. So thank you for coming today.